Well, hello and welcome to today's episode of the Power of Your Mind podcast. You are listening to episode number 243. I'm Victoria Gallagher, Law of Attraction hypnotist and #1 bestselling author of Practical Law of Attraction. Align yourself with the manifesting conditions and successfully attract your desires. And I'm also the founder of HipTalk.com and HypnoCloud apps, which gives you access to over 500 hypnosis recordings right in the palm of your hand. So be sure to download that app from the app stores. And today I have, as you guys know, it's rare that I have guests, but I have a very special guest who is actually making a second appearance on the show, Andrew Kap. Andrew Kap is best known for taking topics that many people would find overwhelming and condensing them into actionable, more consumable content. After getting his perennial bestseller, The Last Law of Attraction book you'll ever need to read, past 100,000 copies in sales, Andrew followed up by publishing another book called 3 Words I Used to Sell 100,000 books, where he lays out an organic marketing strategy for success that any nonfiction author can implement on their first day of learning it. And while writing for authors whose content helps readers learn something or do something or solve a problem or a challenge in their lives, this book is really also a sales and marketing manifesto in disguise. One of the concepts and tactics that any motivated entrepreneur or business owner can modify for their own growth and success. And both of Andrew's books have enjoyed #1 bestseller status in multiple categories on Amazon and continue to serve more readers with every passing day. And he can be found on youtube.com/Andrew Kap. And he can also be found at his website, awesomemarvelous.com. So today, Andrew is going to be sharing some of his insights on those 3 words. He may not tell us what those 3 words are just yet. You might have to get the book to find out, but he's going to be sharing some of his insights about the 3 words that sold 100,000 books. So welcome back to the show, Andrew.
Victoria, thank you so much for having me and for that awesome intro. And very cool to be rarefied air to be a return guest. I'm really excited for where we're going to take this conversation today.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm really excited. I've actually been reading your book. I'm normally in the middle of 5 or 6 books at a time. I don't know about you. I kind of get a little bit multitasky when it comes to my reading, but I'm at least 75% of the way, if not more, through your book. And I, just as a nonfiction author myself, have really, really found it to be very valuable. And so I just want to appreciate you for just being so transparent with the information that has helped you to, far surpass what most authors are ever able to do in this field. So, just thank you for your book.
I really appreciate that compliment. Again, especially coming from a #1 bestselling author, and I really mean that. So I'm glad. It actually it's very affirming to know. Not to throw anyone on a pedestal, but when you have a #1 bestselling author that's being impressed by the information, that to me is a wonderful indicator that I've done my job, because if it helps the #1 bestselling author, ideally it'll help people that have never sold a book before in their life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, there's insights in there that any author, I believe, can make use of. Whether you've already sold 1 million books or you've sold 5, I think you definitely can gain some information from there. So let's just kind of take a back step. So even before writing your first book, Last Law of Attraction book. I mean, did you ever like see yourself as an author? Like, did you see yourself, writing books and writing best-selling books? And, like, tell us just a little bit about like what caused you to write the books in the first place.
Yeah, well, I I never saw my like I never even identify with the title of author. Like if I'm on a date right now, I forgot if we've had this conversation like off camera. If I'm on a
Yeah.
date right now and someone asks me what I do, I don't say I'm an author. I say I'm a, content publisher and marketer because while the book is one aspect of it, so is YouTube and so is other things that I do. The thing about the books is like I never wanted to be like make myself an author full time only. But technically, the last Law of Attraction book you'll ever need to read isn't really my first book. It's the first book under this name. I've written synonymously in the past,
Mhm.
experimental. Like, I wrote one book. This is a fun little thing. I'm more seeing myself more as like an entrepreneur than an author, where I just challenged myself one day, like, can I write and publish a book in only 24 hours?
Ooh.
Which, thanks to Amazon's technology and the fact that I can fairly decent with graphic design skills, I can make a cover real quick. I wrote a 30-page book and published within 24 hours on Amazon. It's no longer there. I kind of changed it into a different bonus for my law of attraction readers. But like for me, the impetus about these books or anything that I do is this the right format, the right avenue by which I can serve and by which I can thrive in my specific business? And I remember, the whole thing about law of attraction is, and we probably went into the backstory on the first appearance, my first appearance here. But long story short is like I kind of like, had a really bad week where it finally like taught me like, let me do this law of attraction thing and like not stop. And this was like this weird epiphany moment in 2008. And I waited like 11 years before writing the book. And the reason I finally wrote the book then was because I wanted to do something new in my business where, to be candid, I wouldn't be bored or impatient interacting with my customer, or in this case, reader. So, the thing about these books is they come from a demand within myself or externally. Because like even 3 words I use to sell 100,000 books, the reason that came to be is one of the things I teach in that is like let people know when you're doing well because maybe then they'll want to join the party. Because when you've sold 10,000 books, it's not nearly as impressive as 40,000, as 75,000. So I'm like posting like here I've sold this X number of books, just hoping that people would notice and want to come to the party. Inadvertently, a bunch of friends was like, hey Andrew, how'd you do this? Can you get on a call with me? And like I don't want to charge my friends, so I'm spending all this time saying the same thing over and over and over again. I'm like, you know what, let me just write a book, and the next time someone like needs help, I'm like, listen, it's $4 the Kindle version on Amazon, and this will help you a hell of a lot more than like sitting down with me for an hour because I really went deep. So yeah, too long didn't read. As you can see, I'm a bit of a chatterbox. The books come when demand or inspiration comes in some way, shape, or form, because I'm only going to tackle a topic if I really feel confident that not just knowing it, but being able to explain it. Because, you know, certainly not the case with you. I mean, you're so clear on what you do, but I think sometimes a lot of authors, they write books because they know it, not necessarily appreciating that the person reading it doesn't know it, and that the information has to be conveyed in a way that's easily accessible, consumable, and implementable.
Yes, absolutely. I love that how you said that too, because a lot of people will write books assuming that you already know a certain amount of information that's already in your mind. And so you have to like really explain it to somebody like, I mean, really the best thing is, I mean, to explain it to them like they're five, like they just that like they're a blank canvas. And I mean, of course, depending on the kind of book that you're writing, but you never know exactly where your audience's knowledge and skill level is. So, being able to explain it to somebody so that anybody can pick it up and anybody can understand it. And I think you have a gift for that. And one thing that it was really interesting. I didn't even know this about you, but I think this would be a fun challenge to put out there is can you write a book in 24 hours and get it on on Amazon. And I think that that would be an amazing challenge for, for my procrastinators out there, anybody who's, I mean, it may not be the end all be all book and the last book that you're going to write in your career, but I think that's a great challenge for those, just so you can like kind of go through the process. Because you can write a 10-page book. It doesn't even have to be a 30-page book. You can write a 10-page book, and and just to go through the process of getting it published so that you can see what it's like, you can get that sense of completion. So I think that's a great challenge.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I think it's a thing where I think people, if they challenge themselves to do that, hopefully they're not too critical of themselves. Hopefully they'll pleasantly surprise themselves like, wow, I did that. I actually shipped the thing and it's done. It's ready to go. And they might shock themselves by how they can get a complete book out there. Again, it's certainly not, I wouldn't recommend a 30-page law of attraction book, although maybe someone will take me up on that challenge. Like, no, Andrew, I'll do it in 30 pages. But yeah, there's so much possibility and potential there. And I think sometimes when we give ourselves, however long we give ourselves to do something is how long we'll take. If we give ourselves 6 months, we'll take, 5 months and 29 days. But if we give ourselves 2 months, well, we'll go 1 month and 29 days or 1 month and 30 days. It's
It
really like, give yourself that little constraint and see if you can surprise yourself.
It is so true. I mean, nature just has a way of like filling up empty spaces. And I mean, if you have that drawer in your house, just nature just kind of comes by and fills up that extra space. Same thing with time. I mean, if I have 2 hours to get ready or 15 minutes to get ready, magically I end up getting ready in exactly the amount of time with no time to spare. So it's so true. You can just give
Yeah.
yourself a time limit and get it done. I mean, this is going to be airing in February, and a lot of times people will think that they need 2 years or 3 years or 5 years or however long to write a book, and it's just not true. I mean, you can literally, here we are, February, maybe you can get your book done by the end of the month or the end of the quarter or the end of the year.
Yeah, and I also tell people, the faster you write your book, the faster you can edit and be happy with it. Meaning, just spit it out, have a really crappy first draft, because then you have clay to mold in front of you versus what when I went through like way back in the day and I kind of got past it, I realized I really edit books rather than write them. I think it's so important to, rather than trying to find the perfect way of saying it the first time out on that keyboard, just spitting out the kind of rough idea and then having it as something that you can mold with. Again, different strokes for different folks and everyone has a different style. But I would say if anyone is struggling and they feel like they're procrastinating, they feel like they can't get that perfect draft out, it's like it's not supposed to be perfect in that draft form. It's just supposed to be something that is accessible for you to work with and mold so that you are happy with it.
Absolutely. It's interesting that you said that you don't usually write books, you edit them. And I do the same thing. A lot of people, they could just kind of sit down and write and then just hand it off to somebody to edit for them. And I kind of find that for me, and I don't know if the same is for you, it sounds like that's what you're saying, is like my book just kind of gets better as I keep molding it. And, so it's like I get my ideas out first, and then I have to rearrange everything and rewrite and rewrite and rewrite. And then, that's ultimately how it ends up, being a great book. So you are saying you kind of do the same thing.
Oh yeah, and I'm very fortunate in that the feedback I get from people, oftentimes, fortunately, is like it really is a breeze to go through my books. I should tell people that's no accident. That isn't me sitting, because keep in mind, I know these topics very deeply and very intimately, but that doesn't mean that I'm articulating them perfectly. Right away. First, I kind of get out kind of what I want to say, and then I go through that process of like, okay, how does this information in front of me have to be rearranged and structured and simplified and
Hmm.
made more concise and streamlined so that someone else can read it and it just clicks. And more importantly, it clicks in a way that's comfortable enough for them that they can continue on to the next page and the next chapter and actually get through the entirety of the book.
Right. Yeah, no, that's a really great strategy. So let's talk about some of the strategies that you use to like really connect with your audience in a deep and meaningful way. So, I mean, do you consider, as you're writing the content for your book, do you consider the audience first, or do you just kind of get the idea for what you're writing about, or do they both sort of, come together?
Well, there's always in the back of my mind the understanding that this is going to be created for public consumption. So it's a
Hmm.
weird thing where in the very first draft, I'm trying to forget about that because I don't want that to stifle, any like wacky out there ideas just to get them out on paper before then turning a critical eye to them later. So I can't help but have that in the background, but I honestly try to, like, in the first draft, I try not to consider the audience too much and more consider what information is there to share, because the editorial process is really where I'm more focused on them and making sure that they're going to be taken care of.
Okay, that makes sense. That definitely makes sense. So in another interview, our past interview, you had mentioned that everyone should write a book. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, so the thing about when I say everyone should write a book, everyone has different lives. Some people, that book might just be for them. Some people, that might be something to help promote their business or strategically position themselves in the marketplace. Some people have a great story to tell. And the reason I say like everyone should write a book is because, whether you're good at it or not, it's a wonderful challenge and it's a wonderful outlet for your creativity and your state, your state of mind and your way of being. I think that the reason everyone should write a book is because most people are scared to do it, and there's a lot more things in this world to be scared of than writing a book. But because it's such a fear and something that people gonna put like they wrote a book on a pedestal, it's more like if you can write a book, you're eliminating this perceived limitation, and all of a sudden you are standing from a stronger place of where you are in your life, and that's regardless of what you're talking about, your career, your relationships, or just how you view yourself and how you operate and carry yourself in the world.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. So with regard to the three words that you used, so without telling us what those three words are there any hints that you can give people, as as far as um, what are what is a book about
Mm,
essentially?
yeah. And couple disclaimers. One, as I say this, I want to make sure I recognize I'm not showing people the way, I'm showing them a way. Meaning
Hmm.
I fully recognize this works for me and it does work for other people. Doesn't mean that it has to work for you, and it doesn't mean that you have to do it this way.
Yeah.
I also want to preface, like, I'm not trying to like trick people into buying the book in order to get the answer. The reason I'm kind of hesitant to say the words is
Hmm.
because I write my books not as books but as experiences. And part of that
Hmm.
experience is the presentation of the information and at the right time. So, I'll tell people if they go on Amazon and they read the preview will go long enough that they'll actually learn the three words without having to buy it. But
Exactly.
I'm actually gonna at least make you read far enough into it so that it at least clicks a little bit. So I'm dancing around it really in service to the reader, not as a way of getting money out of them. With all that said, dancing around the issue because I don't want to give a spoiler here. A way of thinking about this, and the what the book is about, is it's basically showing people how to deliver for their audience in a way that just about nobody else, or maybe nobody else in their space, is doing. And again, this is mostly for nonfiction authors who show the readers how to do something, achieve something, solve a problem or challenge in their lives. If you're a fiction writer, there's like one chapter in this book that'll help you, although you still might gain a lot of sales insights if you read the whole thing. But yeah, really the book is me saying, like, okay, there is a certain way of serving your reader that's going to blow them away, and not just to make you look good, but to blow them in a way, blow them away in a way that they are actually invested in your information enough to actually use it and implement and get the result that they were supposed to get in the first place, which when they do means they recommend to more people, which means you win, they win, the people they recommended to win, everybody wins. This is about creating win-win scenarios. Now, when I say that though, what the book is about, it's like, okay, now that I've kind of told you this, here are all these different strategies, these plug and play strategies. If you like YouTube or you're thinking about doing YouTube, let me show you how to do YouTube with this mindset and in a strategic way, not like just airy fairy, like, hey, this is like the right thing to do. Like, no, let's show you how to actually strategically do this step by step. If you don't like YouTube, let me show you how to do podcast interviews. You don't like podcast interviews? Well, let me at least show you how to title your book or how to design your book cover so the right
Mm-hmm.
people, not anybody, but the right people meant for your book will find their way to it. So this is about basically breaking down all the things that I did intentionally or by accident in order to get my book out there to people and ideally just serve them in a way that they're not used to being served, because just it's not that most authors are bad at this. It's like most authors just don't have that mindset, and therefore their book does not deliver in that way. Like you, I don't know if you knew this or not, your book delivers. So like, kudos to you. Like I mean, I've read Practical Law of Attraction. I love, and I've said this to you before, I love how direct and easy it is to read, but I also love the warmth that you exude. And I think that a lot of authors don't know how to do that, and they view it as something that can't be done, but it can be done more easily when you have the right mindset and the right approach as you dive into each facet of what you're doing, both in the process of writing the book and
Yeah.
then marketing it and promoting it afterwards and getting it in front of all those people.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I would say, for me, what, like, just having that ultimate, like, really desire to have people, like, to want them to understand. And I get that about you. I mean, you are really coming from, just such generosity in your books, and just over delivering. And so, I mean, I felt that with both of your books, because I've actually read and listened to the last Law of Attraction book you'll ever need to read. And like, they were probably like a year or two apart. I think before I interviewed you the last time, I went ahead and got the audiobook just to kind of refresh myself. And then, in the three words, that like, just really spoke to me, just as just as somebody who's written books, and just kind of like, I could really, really see your need to want people to have this information. And so I think that helps. It just helps you as an author to articulate and to be more clear. And trying to think of where I was really going with that, but
Well, I'll
I
take the
kind of like
compliment.
lost. But
Well,
yeah.
I'm glad it resonated. And I think we're on the same page of like, it's about again, nonfiction authors. Because fiction authors are a whole different ball game, but like
Hmm.
nonfiction, it's all about understanding, like, listen, the whole point of this is that your reader gets a win. And by the way,
Hmm.
maybe you want to
Hmm.
make money too. There's nothing wrong with that. Anyone out there? But you're not
Hmm.
going to make money unless your readers get a win, because it's their win that will make them enthusiastic about reviewing your book and about recommending it to others. I don't see me, like, I'll do a little bit of advertising on Amazon these days, and I'm so busy. And honestly, I can't, that the kind of thing, it requires daily work because the bids are changing and you end up losing money unless you're really on top of it. And even when you're on top of it, who knows if you could figure it out. Currently am think I'm losing money on my advertising for
Hmm.
Amazon, but
Hmm.
every book sale that comes through, I think, well, no, it's a win, because the odds are, with the kind of work and intentionality that I put into the book, that if the person that bought actually reads it, they're going to recommend it to 5 other people that won't show up in those numbers. and
Right.
and that's the thing. This is about, like, it is both selfless and selfish in a wonderful way to want to make it the best book possible for the reader, because that's how you succeed also. Like, you want everybody to succeed. Your success is their success and their success is your success, because it's an upward spiral. Like, for me, I write a book, at least the editing part, especially with the intention of, like, no, this person's going to be so blown away. They're going to love this so much. And it's going to shift their paradigm and help them see their problem and the solution in a whole new way that they haven't seen before, in such a way that they can't help but be excited about this and can't help but recommend it. And by the way, just to drone on a little more here, there's a social currency there. when you have a book that you love and you recommend it to a friend, I mean, yeah, I'm saying, like human nature. Yeah, you're recommending because you want to help them, but you also want to look good. You're not going to recommend a book that you think they're going to hate because then your social status will go down. When you recommend a book to someone, it's because you think they're going to love it, they're going to be helped by it, and they're going to view you in a positive light by it. If you could write a book with the intentionality that a person's going to be willing to put their social status amongst their friends and family up as a bargain there, that's how it's going to motivate you. Like, oh no, I am over delivering on this thing because I know it's going to over deliver for anyone they recommend also, and it's going to be an upward trajectory, and that's where 100,000 sales comes from.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. No, I can totally relate to that. I mean, it just, when you kind of already have a little bit of a reputation too, and then you go and you write a book. I mean, you want to make sure that you are, upholding the standard in which people view you. It's like, people already, for me, thought of me as like knowing something about the law of attraction, as much as I talked about it, but I had not, written a book about it. And it's like, oh my, it's like, this has got to deliver. Like, this has got to transform people. And, it's kind of like the same as, when I would write hypnosis, scripts and things like that. I would think like, I got to get the transformation. I got to get these people to get the, so all that to say is like when you have that genuine need to want to help that person, but also, it is like, you do want to look good. You want to look good, and then you want them to look good as well when they're promoting your book. So that absolutely makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I like to think of myself, I'm selfishly selfless, meaning, yeah, there's a bit of selfishness in there, but I'm okay with it because through that selfishness, it is being selfless and serving people. Everyone is
Mhm.
winning through my desire to be successful.
Yeah. So there's a couple little things I picked up on. It's helpful having both book covers behind you, because you can like kind of pick out the similarities and you can pick out the differences. I mean, one is that you used very bold writing, which is very uncommon. A lot of people, when they write these book covers and they like your name is not even on the front cover of the last law of attraction book you'll ever need to read. So was there a reason behind not putting your name on the cover?
Yeah, I think, well, one, obviously it's such a long title and it takes up so much real estate. So
Yeah.
there's a couple of things with that, and this actually dives into a little what I teach in 3 Words I Use to Sell 100,000
Yeah.
books.
Hmm.
Um, if you want to sell books, I I I call this, I don't think anyone's ever called it before, so I think it's my term. I think I'm coining the term. I call it the Amazon squint test because
Hmm.
most books these days they're not going to be sold in a bookstore. But this kind of translates anyway, but they're going to be sold online. Someone's going to be on Amazon and they're going to be looking for a book in your category, and your book is going to be like a suggested thing in a small graphic.
Hmm.
And what you want, in my humble opinion, is for people to be able to read your title very clearly. And hopefully, you have a really good title, because if they can't read the title and the title isn't good, they're not going to be interested enough to click into it. So, with how long these titles are, it was taking so much, real estate. I didn't want to put my name there, but also, like, who was I? I thought it made a better statement that the subtitle wasn't there. There was no name. Like, all it was just this almost like a magazine cover, or almost like a thing. Like, I always like, I'm from New York. I envision this, and COVID hit, so I never got to see this to fruition because I'm going to Manhattan much more after that. But I always envisioned being on the subway and seeing someone read this book. And I know what it's like to ride on the subway and see someone read a book. And I'm like, what's that book they're reading? I could see half the title, but their thumbs over it. I'm like, no, my title's gonna be so big that their thumbs won't be able to cover this. So that if other subway riders are watching someone read my book, they will see it. They'll be able to look it up on Amazon. They'll get it also. So it's just this vision of like having like, no, this is the last law of attraction book you'll ever need to read. And like that's a whole statement. And my name or any name, I think, would dilute that on the cover.
Yeah, no, that's a really great, excellent, and I think that's something, some people think about, some people don't think about. It's just like the readability, and I like the squint test. That's maybe your phrase, but that's a really really good analogy to like let like can somebody actually read this title?
Mm.
That I was kind of going through that recently with my app icon. It's like we're gonna spell it out, and we're gonna just put the one letter on there, going to put an icon on there, so the other thing that I noticed as I'm seeing these two books side by side is you definitely in just different ways, but I noticed you reuse the exact same colors just in different ways. So would you say that you've got white, yellow, green, red, blue, black. So you've got like 6 colors on there. Now, is that something you did intentionally? Did you think about using the same colors in your new book as you did in your old book for branding, or like how did that come about?
Yeah. So, and by the way, this is my style. Like I go with primary colors just because
Yeah.
they're safe
Yeah.
and human psychology and all that stuff. And by the way, one of my free bonuses that I give away in 3 words I use to sell 100,000 books is a 27-minute video where I actually go through all of the drafts of
Ooh.
the cover of that book. One of which, like, I tried black and white. Like I
Mhm.
tried to go very different from the law of
Mhm.
attraction one because I knew situations like this, they'd be next to each other, so they couldn't be too similar. I mean, they'd have to have some of a standout part. But really, it's an iterative process where I try different things until I can say, okay, well, people can clearly read it. It pops enough that they'll notice it, and that now I'm happy. And even like the font, like I use the same font. I use Times New Roman, and
Mhm.
ironically, I had to finish 3 words I used to sell 100,000 books. I had to do it in Photoshop because Canva's version of Times New Roman just doesn't look the same. It's different. So
Mhm.
it's funny, these little choices that you end up making. But yeah, ultimately, the color stuff is kind of stuff that I kind of fall backwards into until it's just like, oh, okay, I'm good with this now, and I feel comfortable. I feel comfortable with this being a little small image on an Amazon screen. That's kind of like the
Yeah.
final thing. And the last little attraction book cover, it was a thing where in the beginning I thought like the background was going to be like yellow, and the first draft was like this harsh like gold yellow, and it was just so loud and obnoxious. And you could probably notice I'm using like cool colors, so it's like this. There's a feeling of ease that's emoting intentionally from the last law of attraction book you'll ever need to read cover. It's like it's not sharp popping stuff. It's more like, okay, I feel like calm now. And I'm
Mhm.
gonna go like, because it's such a bold title. So there was
Yeah.
like gonna juxtapose it with soft colors.
Right. Yeah. No, that makes sense. And then the other thing that I picked up on, just seeing these two books side by side, because I'm kind of a word person. So I noticed in the last Law of Attraction book, you'll ever need to read, you said, you're talking about the person who's buying the book, but you made the 3 words I used. So, you're just talking about yourself there instead of saying you. So was that done deliberately? Did you think, was there a game plan behind that?
Yeah, well, I think you is always better if
Mm-hmm.
you can. The thing about the last law of attraction book you'll ever need to read is I wholeheartedly believe that it's the last law of attraction book that anyone reading it will ever need. Doesn't mean it's the last. It doesn't mean I'm not even call it the best one. I mean, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. That's up to everyone. I believe it's the last one. That's the way I designed it.
Mm-hmm.
I can't guarantee anybody is going to sell 100,000 books because I don't know what kind of their genre. I don't know what kind of action they're going to take. I'm like, well,
Mm-hmm.
what's true? What's true is I sold. So instead,
Mm-hmm.
this time, rather than saying like 3 words that you're going to use, I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
maybe you could sell 1 million, but these are definitely 3 words that I used to sell 100,000 books. I want to show you how you could use them to sell more books. 100,000, that's up to you. So it was more of like just being intentional about not making a promise that I don't think I can keep or I don't think the book can keep.
Right. Yeah, that absolutely makes sense. So yeah, because a person's gonna see that 100,000 books, they're gonna see 3 words, but you're not making any promises about that. You're just saying, hey, this is what I did. And it's implied that if I can do it, that, here's what I did. So anyone can learn how to do that.
Yeah, and you made a
And
really good point there, just to say, like, even though it says I, both of these titles are about the reader. Like
Mm-hmm.
the implied understanding is like the reason I'm sharing these words is so not to brag, but so that you can apply this knowledge. So even the and that, by the way, I challenge people, they can make a book title with the word I, but you're still making sure that it's about the reader. Everything you do should be about the reader. It's about them. It's, and once you get on that understanding, your content is going to be so much more powerful and effective.
Yes, absolutely. So, as somebody who's written books in the past, is going to write other books in the future, just speaking of myself, I found like, oh boy, there are some things in this book that I wish that I would have read before I wrote, some of my past books. So of course I'll be taking that information and, either, I mean, you can always republish, you can always rewrite. But of course, taking that information whenever I write any new books. So where would you say is the best place if a person's, already written books? I mean, what kind of recommendation would you have for that person as far as this book goes?
You mean as like whether they should be using the content or how much? Like, I think it's a person by person situation. Like,
Mm-hmm.
is it something where you want to take this content and revamp your book? Go for it. Is it something where
Mm-hmm.
you want to use for the next one? I think everyone knows, and they're being on. They can be honest with themselves, by the way, whether they're just being lazy or whether they really want. They know whether it's worth the time and energy to rebrand a book versus doing something new.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing I would say is I'm highly confident that if you want to, you can use this in either way. But it's always going to be like on a person by person basis, based on whether they have the time and the energy and quite frankly the bandwidth. Like me, you can even say it here by in my voice. Um, I personally can never go back to old books because I poured so much of myself into it. It feels so much lighter and easier just to write a new book. But that's just me. Other
Mm-hmm.
people, like everyone's got their own personality and their own way of doing it. And I'll just say, please, anyone listening, honor yourself and your tendencies, be honest with yourself, and use it in a way that's going to work best for you.
Right. And I guess like as a addendum to that question is kind of like what reader or what writer are you targeting? Like what cycle of or is this somebody who's never who is just at the beginning stages of writing their book, or is this somebody, I mean, could somebody use this book who's already written it, already got the cover, all of that? Um, what is available in this book for that person who's already got a book out, and could that person make use of this?
Yeah, and I'm a bit of a rule breaker. Like you can see with like, the last law of attraction cover,
Hmm.
I didn't put my name on it. It's because I self-published. I think a
Hmm.
publisher, an official publisher would make me do that. So, and I
Hmm.
say that because I'm also breaking the rules of I think, a wise business person will like niche down. The extent to which I niche down in the three words I use, sell 100,000 books, is you're reading this, you're a nonfiction author who wants to sell more books.
Yeah.
Meaning, there's some stuff about the cover and title that I think will really help you, but even whether that does help you or not, well, then there's like the after the fact of like, maybe you've published it, maybe you're about to publish it, maybe you can change the cover, maybe it's too late. But well, here's how to do YouTube, here's how to do podcasts, here's how to do email, here's how to here's how to structure bonuses. And by the way, you might have completed your book, but you still have access to republish. You can just write a new chapter creating supplemental bonuses.
Hmm.
Like you could take stuff from what this book teaches and you don't have to revamp your whole book. Maybe you can add one chapter at the end that inspires people, that gives them supplemental extra bonus content so that they opt into your list so they can send them even more value. And then all of a sudden you've got a core audience that you can email and reach out to when you publish another book after that.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so speaking of bonus content, let's talk about some kind of bonus in this episode here that just really like what's one thing that could really make a difference? Like what's the biggest thing that could really make a difference for somebody just you don't it's something that you don't think most people know that you're willing to just kind of spill the beans on that would really really help somebody to either in the writing process or in the marketing process?
Yeah. So this is going to sound
I really put you on the spot here.
no, like no, I have something. I want to make sure I phrase it the right way because I hate when somebody gives like an answer like, oh, it's this, and they don't really explain the real impact of it. So
Hmm.
I'm gonna like give it to you, but then I'm gonna give examples because it's the examples that will really flesh out the power of this.
Hmm.
If someone really wants to make an impact, and I've kind of hit on this already, it's having a real understanding and intentionality and care for the recipient of your content and how they are going to experience that. And when I say that, I say that applies to everything. So, example, we're not even talking about books. We're talking about making a dating profile, right? Go on your dating profile right now. Are you complaining about your things? Are you saying, I don't like this, I don't like this, and I don't like this? What kind of message is that sending? Where you can say, I like this, I like this, I like this. If you don't like, you know, I don't like men who don't hold the door open for me. Just say, I love it when a man holds the door open for you. There's always a way of saying it. And what I'm saying is like, what you say, how you say it, how you do it, it's making an impact on the recipients. And that's what bleeds into the cover that you choose, the title that you choose, your YouTube strategy, your interview strategy, the bonuses that you make. When you have a core intentionality of giving the recipient a win, whether it's an easy to understand thing or it's a pleasant surprise or you're shifting their paradigm, like whatever it is, when you're always coming from that standpoint, you get better at everything. You make a better impression and you position yourself better, whether it's book sales, dating profiles, job resumes, the cover letters, whatever it might be, whether it's, writing an ad for your book so that you can market it, whether it's pitching another podcast. Tell them the kind of wins that you're going to get them in their audience, not why your book is so awesome, but the
Hmm.
wins that you want to get them in their audience. What are they going to care
Hmm.
about more? They don't care about your book, nor should they. They don't care. They shouldn't care about their book. They should care about themselves and their podcast and their audience. That is their responsibility. And it is your responsibility to appreciate that, not hate them for that,
Yeah.
not look down on them for that, because you're being selfish also. You want your book to do well. It's all about understanding human nature and caring enough. And I know, and I'm kind of talking in circles, but if only people understood that, and if
Yeah.
only they applied it, they would become instantly successful over almost overnight. Maybe, me took, 2.5 years to sell 100,000 copies. Well, hey, I know people that they've sold 1 million copies in a year. Good for them. You do what you can do in the space that you can do it, and you will pleasantly surprise yourself. But it has to begin with making that impact and knowing that that's the important thing. Your bank balance will reflect it later. Worry about the person that you're serving. Everything else will take care of itself.
Yes. And so many times in this interview already, you've shared one of the three words. I won't give away which one it is, but you've mentioned it many, many times. And so, you've already given us, a huge, huge gift by, just being on this podcast and sharing, what you've done in some of your strategies. And, so I really appreciate that about you. I'm really curious to know a couple of things.
Mhm.
One, let's just say that there was somebody who, like they really wanted to get their book going. But they also had like a little bit of like they also needed your law of attraction book because they've got some interesting beliefs that are holding them back from or interesting thought processes, kind of like the ones that you mentioned. What would you say would they to that person that needed to get their mindset in shape to write the book? Would they benefit more from your last law of attraction book, or would they benefit more from your three words
Mm.
book? Yeah.
So getting in the mindset to believe in themselves to get the
Yeah.
book out there, I mean, I would think the law of attraction book would serve them more.
Hmm.
When it comes time though for this to put the strategies in place and
Yeah.
to actually apply and do, that's where the new one will help them. I mean, I don't think I didn't design the new one to get people to like, believe in themselves more about being a better writer. I
Yeah.
more designed that book of like, listen, I assume you're a writer already, whether you're good or not, whether you believe in yourself or not. I assume that you already write. Let me show you how to leverage your gift in that direction. So
Yeah.
mindset in any way, shape, or form, I'd point them towards law of attraction. Strategies, tactics, for selling more books, I'd point them towards 3 words I use to sell 100,000 books.
Yeah. And, interestingly enough, too, this 3 words book, just as I was picking up on from, the last part of your conversation, that can really be used for any kind of content, whether it's personal content, you're writing a love letter, or a profile on, whether it's Facebook or, just even the whatever you are posting about, whatever, a course, podcast, whatever it is that you're writing. I mean, that could actually be used to sell, anything, because everything that we say is at some level, it's selling. We're
Yeah.
always selling, whether we realize it or not.
And thank you for the compliment. And it's funny, like me, I challenge myself to go on these deeper levels. So a deeper
Hmm.
level of that book is that it's like a sales and marketing book in disguise. Even though I frame everything in the context of selling more books,
Hmm.
I believe and agree, and I appreciate the compliment, that if you're trying to title your info product, my chapter on titling your book will benefit you. My chapter
Hmm.
on the subtitle for your book will benefit you, because it's all about human psychology and how to connect and how to resonate, how to make an impact, how to serve them, and applying that to whatever you're doing, whether it's a book or a product, a service, or anything else.
Yeah. And there was one other question I was going to ask you was, are there, because, I had thought it was interesting because when you wrote Last Law of Attraction book, I'm just thinking of you as a law of attraction author. So I'm like thinking, is this the only book he's ever gonna write? And of course, you surprised us with this totally different type of book on, marketing and strategy, which completely makes sense because that was your background even before you wrote the Last Law of Attraction book. So it just really fits. But now what are you gonna do? Are you are you planning to write any more books?
So I have two ideas for two new books. And by the way, the current draft for the cover of the next book is mostly like, black and white with a
Hmm.
little extra highlights of blue and purple or red. It's kind of hard to articulate. Um, so the next book is, it sounds so cryptic. It's like a law of attraction book, meaning, is there a book where I can explain the power of this without putting the law of attraction into it, since there's people out there that don't believe in the law of attraction? It's like,
Hmm.
okay, for the people that don't believe in the law of attraction, can these ideas serve them? Well, yes, they can, but can I articulate them and present them in a way that will serve them? And
Mm.
that's, it takes a lot of bandwidth for me to write a book. So I don't know when I'll actually like write it, but
Yeah.
the next one is like a non-law of attraction book using law of attraction principles and things, and we'll see where we go from there. But obviously, again, I'm a rule breaker. Like, after the success of law of attraction book, well, I kind of backed myself in a corner because I called it the last one, and I stand by that. So it's like I can't be like, here's another one, here's the second to last
You
one.
can't. Yeah.
Can't do that. But that part aside, it's like, yeah, I established myself as like this law of attraction, author, whatever. And I'm like, well, you know I'm inspired to write about selling books, so I'm going to do that. And this next thing, I'm inspired about like a non-law of attraction, law of attraction book. And what else next? Like, I find, like, it sounds like cliche, but whatever inspires me, it isn't about like, hey, if it inspires you, it'll be work like magic. It's like, maybe it will, maybe it won't. All I know is about myself. If it inspires me, then I will have the power, the enthusiasm, the energy, and the focus to make it the best that I can make it. And therefore, that's why I follow my passions, my inspiration, because I understand I give my best effort, my best creativity, and the best end product for the user, when I'm inspired and motivated and excited about what I'm doing.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, this has been just another amazing interview. So I'm really, really glad that I had the opportunity to have you back on the show again. And, before we get into, how people can get a hold of you and get your, law of attraction and your 3 words book, do you have any like final message for our audience today?
Yeah, well, I actually have one more thing. And it's like, again, thank you for having me. And like right now, guests aren't a normal thing for you. And I want to pose a challenge to your audience. It's like, think about what Victoria does and think about what we just discussed and think about how you can go to win, even if you never read a book from me at all. And what I mean by that is everything I was talking about here is understanding human nature and applying that to your success. Also, understand your own human nature. Are you procrastinating in a way that you should be using Victoria's app, for example, and that you haven't been doing it? But if you were only have a deeper insight into your psychology and why you weren't doing it, that you could overcome it, how can you use what we discussed today for your own benefit and your own advantage in the context of what Victoria offers, since that's what you were most familiar with? That's my challenge to your audience. Get a win out of this, whether they buy my book or not, just based on what they heard here and what they know about what you offer.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And speaking of which, since I know that this is airing February 9th, and I have right now a launch date of January 31st, possibly the app is out by now, but right now I'm in November having to predict the future. So thank you so much. I want to have you direct our audience to where they can get some more information. I know that you're offering this ultimate abundance money meditation, and that's out of your law of attraction book, and they can get that at ultimateabundancemeditation.com.
Mm-hmm.
And did you have anything you wanted to share about that?
Yeah, well, so basically, this is usually a perk that so the book itself has what I call, the ultimate abundance money meditation, which is just a
Mm-hmm.
fun little meditation to, help open your mindset to receive more money. And I recorded an audio version of it, and it became a thing where when people would write in, I would gift it to them as like just saying thank you. I'm like, okay, most people really appreciate it. I'm like, all right, well, let me put this out for everyone here. And when you go there, there's no opt-in. Like it's literally you could stream it. It's a YouTube video. So if you go to ultimateabundancemeditation.com, it's like a 7-minute meditation. All I would say is, obviously you're familiar with Victoria, so you should be on board with meditation to an extent. Give this one
Mm-hmm.
a try. You might really like it. So ultimateabundancemeditation.com, but also, anyone that wants more access to what I'm doing, if you go to awesomemarvelous.com, that will have links to my YouTube channel and links to both my books on Amazon. And those go to the US site. If you're not in the United States, you can just go to your local Amazon, your local Audible, your local Apple Books, and look for either the last law of attraction book you'll ever need to read or 3 words I use to sell 100,000 books.
Awesome. Awesome. Awesome and marvelous.
Exactly.
Two wonderful words. Well, thank you so much, Andrew, for being a guest on the Power of Your Mind podcast. I wish you continuous abundance of success with both of your books and any future books you do. And again, audience, thank you so much for tuning in every week to the Power of Your Mind podcast. And I will see you next week.